Hi and welcome to the Wilson Chala's YouTube channel. We are dedicated to preserving and sharing Zambia's rich history through topics like culture, politics, finance, and education. From traditional ceremonies to trending stories, parliament proceedings, and everyday voices, we bridge Zambia's past to its future. Join us in building a timeless digital archive. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and now let us explore the story you've been waiting for.
Hi everyone, first off, thank you for being part of this journey with me. This channel has grown because of your support and I don't take that for granted. I want to share a quick update. I'm making some changes to how I put together videos going forward. You may notice a bit more commentary and context from me on stories. I'm putting extra care into making sure every video brings real value, not just footage or news clips repackaged. My goal has always been to inform, educate, and entertain you with content on Zambia's education, current affairs, and culture. And I want to keep raising that bar.
And if I'm still fighting for a better society when I probably just have a couple of decades to live, that must show them that they need to do more themselves. I think that should be the approach.
Do you think also maybe it's because I guess maybe young people are not hearing the message that resonates with them? And so a lot of them, again, speaking to that disillusionment, a lot of them begin to think, I mean, what is the point if no one is actually speaking to me rather than they're speaking and shouting at each other? The message is not, the message in terms of intentions of what you want to do for me are not as clear as they should be.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the youth think that they've been excluded from the development agenda. They think that they have not seen the fruits of their vote maybe in the last four years plus. But no, in the sense, one would say this is a ship, that moves extremely slowly to get you to the destination. And I think that's important to realize, that the way we humanly are patient about nature, that, you plant a mango seed and you wait for it to germinate, to grow, to give you a mango fruit. However much you may be craving for a mango fruit, you still have to be that patient and wait. So is the case with the development. So it reaches out to different people in different ways and at different times. And maybe, yes, the youth are right that it's the fault of us politicians because we don't reach out to them with the correct message at the right time and the message of hope. Because unlike the youths now, those of us who were youths, 40 years ago had opportunities. When I left UNZA, I had an opportunity to join the Lusaka City Council, ZESCO, and the intelligence. I actually had to choose where I wanted to go. And out of the three, I said I'll join Lusaka City Council. Now, you don't have that, that kind of privilege or that luxury to choose where to go. You'll be walking around, with your degree, and sometimes you decide to do a master's degree, still you find yourself without a job. So I think it's important that the politicians give this message of hope to the youths, and this is not about just youth empowerment. It's also about the mental architecture of the youths. They must be put in that state of mind that there is hope for tomorrow.
Patience patience is a virtue, they say, but unfortunately in life it isn't. Whether it's football fans they're not very patient with their football managers. They want instant results. It's similar to a country as well. People don't want to be patient. They want semi-instant results. How do you speak to a citizen and sort of explain to them that politics doesn't move the way that you would imagine it would move, and that maybe 4 years, 5 years is not enough for you to see where the development is, regardless of whoever it is who's in charge?
Yeah, one of the pitfalls that we face in our country is the lack of teaching of hard history. in schools, primary school, secondary school, even at the university. You know, from my avid reading of history now, I've actually just come to discover that a lot of stuff that I was taught as history at secondary school, at the university, was just scratching the surface. Okay? And I think, you know, Luchi, if you are going to govern people, then you must make them understand. Understand not only the present, but they must understand the past. Okay? I've just finished reading a book by Ken Follett. It's a fiction book, but based on research, that actually in the dark ages in England, there were charcoal burners. There were people who survived on charcoal burning. Marasha, Nazungu. That was their economy. They survived on charcoal burning. So I said to myself, oh, so this charcoal burning now is not really just about being African. It was there in England. But if you don't know, if you don't have that contrast that England evolved from that past to be what it is today, the London that we admire today, and the England that we admire today, and the America that we admire today, it is very difficult for you to understand what is going on around you. Okay? The people that jumped on the ships that were sailing from Europe to America, you know, in those days, I mean, they ended up, you know, with the bag bites. You know, there were bags on the ships. There was lice on the ships. You know, but if you jump on that ship today, you find it is clean. Like that's how it has been 300-400 years ago. So history is important, whether at family level or at the city level. If you don't understand where Lusaka comes from, it will be very difficult for you to appreciate where it is today. And so is the case at the national level. So we have to equip people with the knowledge. If we don't do that, they get confined, you know, to this area of very limited understanding of not only your society but the world at large, and that can be dangerous.
Like you, I was reading, maybe not an author, but I was listening to something from somebody that I think you might know, Alistair Campbell. He was associated with the Tony Blair team when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and he was talking in this clip about how it's really difficult to explain policy to citizens and the electorate. And he was making the argument to say that sometimes people want to see instant results, but they don't want to see the policy that gets them there.
Yes.
Do you think in the past 5-4 years, you think that there's been enough policy for someone to say you should retain this particular party based off maybe 2, 3, or 4 of these policies?
The policies, I think, have been articulated. You know, if you take CDF, for example, I think it has been, I have my own misgivings about CDF, but in terms of policy and what it is intended to achieve, I think it has been well explained.
There's a difference, though, between explaining, and maybe that's the line, to say you can have a policy, you can explain the policy, but is it being implemented the right way?
Yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
There's obviously a difference between.
Yes, obviously, every policy has hiccups. Yeah. Okay, because it is humanly constructed. So every policy has hiccups, and every policy has a timeline. If you formulate a policy today, you must give it a timeline for evaluation and review. So you say, for example, we are going to do CDF, implement CDF as a policy in the next 2.5 years, which is the half term of the term period of our being in office. We are going to review it. Okay, and in reviewing it, you must be honest enough to interrogate its failures and its successes, where it was weak and where it was strong, and then go back to the people and say, look, we actually thought this policy would work 80%. We have only achieved now 60% for the following reasons. So we have reviewed it for another 2.5 years, so that we can complete its lifeline, to give you the desired results. Communication is very important between government and the people. The people must understand, after all, you're a people's government. You've just been entrusted with power.
Let's take
So you
Pause
owe it
here.
to them to
But
go back
don't worry,
and explain.
we are coming right back to finish this story. I just want to say a quick thank you for watching all the way to this point. This channel exists to bridge Zambia with its future, bringing you daily updates on what is happening across education, current affairs, and entertainment. If you are already a member of this channel, thank you for your support. Sharing this video with a friend or family member really helps us reach more people. And if you are new here, this is a great time to hit that subscribe button so that you catch our
And I
next
always use this phrase,
upload.
if people say,
All right.
we can't see the benefits of CDF, don't argue with them. Don't argue with the voter. It's like a customer. The voter is always right. So what you ought to do is make the voter understand. And then you can keep the voter on your side.
But that's hard. I remember you when you were Secretary General of the Patriotic Front. I remember you doing an interview here with Uncle Sam. I think could have been maybe 90 days after PF had won in 2011.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to people call in, and you had to I don't say you were struggling, because that's not what you do. But you fought really hard to try and explain to people that, listen, I mean, we're in the right path, we're heading in the right direction.
Yes.
And I thought it was abusive even then, and I even think about it even today. I thought it was very abusive then. But I found it amazing that you thought this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to come in and sort of explain to people where we are, why we haven't reached where we said we would reach within this 90-day or 100-day or 120-day period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you see, maybe it was our fault as government, not the voters. Okay. I remember Mr. Sata making a pronouncement, saying that I'm only going to appoint educated people. Oh my God, there was outrage on the copper belt. Nga baba sambirira abo ero twali chula bali kwisa twali chulira PF ifwe nomba lero basata balanda ati binomo nalabika fya basambirira. I had to say to Mr. Sata, can I travel to the copper belt and go and speak to our people? And Luchi, I went to the copper belt, that little theater, if that's the correct name of that hall, was packed. You could hardly breathe, and the atmosphere was tense, to the extent that they even refused to sing the national anthem. And I had to put my foot down. I said, this is a requirement. What you are doing now is tantamount to indiscipline. And if you act like that, I will not address this meeting, because after all, I've come to listen to your grievances. I'm your messenger from the president. And maybe what you are saying is right. So let's sing the national anthem. And in a very gloomy mood, we sang the national anthem. And we got on with the meeting. And I said to them, there is nothing wrong. What the demand that this can not only be people with degrees is right. So I'll take the message back to the president. So I came back and briefed the president. That's how we started the poem. He started appointing, DC chairman, or DC, constituency chairman, DC, But you see, we had to speak to the people. We had to say they are right, because they're the ones that have voted. We didn't argue with them. So for me, I learned lessons from that past, which I can easily share with with my country today in this situation.
What does it take to win an election?
Oh, that's a good question.
And I ask this question because obviously we all remember how the PF was formed. We all remember how many elections it took before Michael ended up winning.
Yeah.
What does it actually take?
It takes a lot of things, Luchi. And that's why as I sit back now, since I'm not a participant in this election, and I listen to people make statements and make predictions, I wonder whether or not they really know what it takes to win an election. Winning an election is not just about campaigning. You can campaign and scream your lungs out. You can still lose an election. You can pull crowds. You can still lose an election. Okay? There is some behind the curtain, as I would call it, planning that is done to enable you to win an election. Okay? Because if crowds were the only indicator, Malema today would be president of South Africa. Because nobody is able to pull the crowds that Malema pulls.
But we seem to be obsessed with crowds at the moment.
Sorry?
We seem to be obsessed with crowds.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So at the beginning, you talked about how peculiar these elections are.
That's what
For
I'm
me,
saying.
one of the things that makes it peculiar is that there seems to be this weird obsession with how large your crowd is.
Exactly.
That's a bit strange.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what that's a point I'm trying to canvas. That if crowds were the only benchmark, Malema would be president of South Africa. If crowds were the only benchmark, Morgan Tsvangirai would have died as the president of Zimbabwe. Okay. If crowds were the only index that you can pick, Michael Sata would have won the election in 2006, and maybe if not in 2006, in 2008. So when you look at all these experiences in other countries, including our country, you then say to yourself, crowds are not the only and most important index. There are other things. Okay, now what are these other things? Now, I share my experience because I've been there. A number of people that are even making these predictions have never planned for an election. They've never been there. Even those that were in PF, they just came to discover that we have won. They didn't know how much work went into planning, went into building the infrastructure that made PF win. They have no idea. Okay? Now, in PF, for example, let me use the PF example. I went to Mr. Sata and I said, can you allow me to form what we call the campaign and the strategy committee? And he said, go ahead. I got a list of members and I went back to him and said, are you comfortable with this list of members? He said, yes. We got on with the meetings. And the first thing that we did, Luchi, was we tasked one of our members to go to ECZ then. They didn't have a very active website, to go and collect results for local government, MPs, and the president from 2001 to 2008, which was the last election prior to the 2011 one. And we plotted graphs to see how, and we were interested mainly in 3 political parties: MMD, which was ruling, PF, and UPND. We left out the others. We plotted graphs. And graphs, the 3 graphs came to show us that of the 3 political parties, the graph for the MMD had reached its peak and it was actually dipping. And so was that of the UPND. The one that was still on the rising scale was the PF one. So we interpreted that graph and said to ourselves, then PF has a future here to win an election. We saw, we looked at the number of votes garnered by each candidate, starting from Mazoka in 2001, and Michael Sata, who started off with 56,000 votes in 2001, up to 2008. So the point I'm making is that we gave it a scientific approach. The other thing that we got interested in were structures. You need to have structures on the ground. You need to have people on the ground. Why? Because these are your envoys. These are the mouthpieces of the party on the ground. They are the people that preach about the party on the ground on a daily basis, at church, at funeral gatherings, etc., etc. So you need this human capital on the ground. So we embarked on the creation of structures, because in 2008, when Michael Sata lost to Rupia Banda by 35,000 votes, we had a post-mortem meeting in which some of my colleagues said RB had stolen that election. I put up my hand. I said, no, we have just lost this election fairly. If Mr. Sata is still getting 0 at certain polling stations, it means we haven't done much work. I was being honest enough. So we discovered that we needed the people on the ground. We set up registers, so we knew exactly where our members were, genuine members. And I break down, people that vote for you, no, not for you, that vote for a political party, Luchi, into 3. I break them as follows. 1, you have your members that vote for you. 2, you have your supporters. Your supporters are not necessarily your members. They just support the party. I love, party X. Okay? 3, you have sympathizers. People that just sympathize, with the...
Like undecided?
Yes. Okay. They're undecided. Yeah. Okay?
It doesn't matter. Sometimes they go this way,
sometimes they go this way, sometimes they go... So you have these 3 categories of people that vote. Okay? And you must build these constituencies or list them in order of priority. In other words, your members must at least be slightly more than your supporters. Because you have no control over your supporters. You don't even know where they are, you don't even know who they are. But for the members, you know where they are and you know who they are. Okay? And then the last one are sympathizers. These are guys just make up their mind, on the queue. So we did that. The next thing that we did was, if you remember, MMD had said you can't do the vote, parallel vote tabulation system. It is an offense. We had to establish a clandestine one. And the system was built by a consultants company in Kenya. And none of these guys in the PF, all these guys that are making predictions today, none of them was anywhere near this. And I had 2 boys that came, youngsters that came from Kenya. In areas where we didn't have enough network that time, Miles Sample went to South Africa and we paid for 30 satellite phones, which we brought in. And we distributed them. So the point I'm making is that there is a lot of planning. That is the reason why, Luchi, on Thursday, the 23rd of November, if I remember, 23rd, by lunch hour, we had the results. Way before ECZ had the results. We had the results for 137 constituencies, when ECZ still had the results for only 116 constituencies. And we said to ourselves, the remaining 135, to 150, the remaining 50 or whatever, 15, even if MMD got 100% in those constituencies, which was not possible, we have still won this election. Okay? That is how we won that election. It was not about crowds only. It was meticulous planning, building the infrastructure to protect the vote and also to collect the results. And that we didn't do in 2 months. We did that over a period of almost a year. I'd employed 2 ladies who were building the database of our members. They were being paid by the party. You don't do that in 2 months. You don't do that in 1 month. You don't do that after just, creating a party, or after 6 weeks. PF then, if you remember, it was 10 years old. So it has built. The symbol of the party, Pabuato, had overtaken Michael's name. Before Pabuato was internalized, everybody was saying, Party Yabasata. Party Yabasata. So Sata was the emblem. When the people came to internalize Pabuato, they stopped referring to Michael Sata. Whatever he went to, Pabuato. So the symbol was the driving force now of the Chimwera amongst the people, not Michael Sata. He became subordinate to the symbol. So you have these multiple factors put together that make you win an election. That's my experience.
So what you were saying, because I read I think it was in the news diggers where you were quoted as saying in your analysis you didn't think that the opposition had enough this time around. You didn't think that they had enough to go ahead and win the election.
No.
Yeah.
I still think so. And this is not because I don't like Brian Mundubile. This is not about because I don't like Makebi Zulu. Both of them are colleagues of mine, even in the legal profession. But even if they came to my house tonight, I can tell them exactly what I'm saying here and say to them, your chances are very slim for the following reasons. I can say that to them. Because what I'm saying is, in my view, an objective analysis. Okay? And I'm saying this not because I think Brian Mundubile will not give me a job, if he won. No. I don't want a job from him. I'm not saying this because I think HH will give me a job, from him if he won. No. I don't want a job from him. What I want is a good president to come and run this country and make it a better country than it is today. That's the person that I'm looking for. Not one who is going to do me personal favors. No. I'm looking for a president for all Zambians. The one who is going to deliver and cater for the welfare, improve the welfare of every Zambian. That is the president I'm looking for. And I'm saying, I've said this on many forums, that in 2021, I didn't vote for HH. And my reason was simple. It's not because I didn't like HH. It's not because I liked ECL. My argument was, at least ECL has had more experience in government affairs than HH. So I said to myself, with all his weaknesses and the other attendant shortcomings, ECL was a better president or presidential candidate. I have the same argument today, that between Brian Mundubile and HH, I'm convinced that HH has more experience in governing this country, even with all the shortcomings in the last 4 years, than Brian Mundubile. And I think that is only fair and objective.
There has to be more, shouldn't there? The argument can't simply be one has more experience than the other. And now I'm not even talking about in this. I'm just saying in your past. And it's weird mentioning this to you because obviously you never want to ask people how they vote. But when you walk into a voting booth, there has to be a lot more thought process rather than just a simple, this one has more experience than the other one. In that case, Barack Obama would never be president. No. Because he had zero experience.
No.
As compared to, who was he running against first? John McCain, who was senator for many, many years.
No. But Barack Obama was senator. Yeah. Don't forget that.
For maybe 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah, in comparison.
Yes.
In comparison.
No. But look, I'm talking, if you are making that comparison, HH has been president for 4 years. Mundubile has been president for what? 0 years. And you don't make that decision in a voting booth. You make it now. You start reasoning now. If you really, what you care about is the country. I see people on social media posting, if we need BM 8 chabe, Now, that's not the debate that I want to subscribe to. Okay? If you have made up your mind because BM is your favorite for whatever reason, you
fall in the camp of being a supporter.
Yeah. You fall in the camp of being a supporter.
Let's use the three that you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay? I don't have a problem with that. What I'm doing is give, in my view, an objective analysis. Okay? And if the analysis seems to favor A against B, so be it. And all that I'm saying is, I've seen this before, and it is likely to repeat itself. 8, 9 out of 10 chances it shall repeat itself. So that is the situation as I see it. And I've tried to explain to you what we did in PF. And I hope, the other factor really that is here for also that you can talk about is incumbency. That's also a major factor in an election. Okay? Now, let me proceed and say this. I was just working out the figures. And here are the figures. Of the 226 constituencies, the Tonse Alliance has only filed in 154. Okay? Constituencies. and they failed to file in 71. Out of 1,850 local government seats, I think they haven't filed not even half of that. UPND has 7 unopposed seats, and 6 unopposed seats for mayoral and councillors, and they have 226 candidates in all the constituencies, and they have 1,850 local government candidates. Okay, there are approximately 7,000 polling stations in the country. Approximately 7,000. In 2011, there were only 1,200
polling stations
across the country for 150 constituencies at the time. We managed to have polling agents in about 850 constituencies. Okay, as opposition in 2011. Tonse now, because they have split the team in terms of voting. You've got the list for Makebi Zulu and the Resolute Party, and you've got the NRPUP and BM. It means the Maccabi group needs 7,000 polling agents. Now, ordinarily, you don't want one polling agent per polling station, just in case a fellow falls sick. So you have a minimum of 2.
And that brings us to the end
14,
of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and picked up something valuable along the way. So tell us, what is one thing you learned today? Drop it in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Looking ahead, our goal for this channel is simple: to keep bringing you honest, well-researched and engaging content on everything happening in Zambia, from education to current affairs to entertainment. We are just getting started. If you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss what is coming next. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.
That's why I'm supporting Y.